Hello guys, once again it's Matt, and today we have another video. Thank you all the members, all the patrons. Make sure to subscribe. We are trying to hit 50,000 subscribers. We are almost at 20k, so help me out there and let's go guys. So today I wanted to talk a little bit about the R27ER specifically, or basically all the R27, right? They are already one of the best missiles in the game. I think they are the best missile in the game, even better than the Phoenix AIM-7's, doesn't matter. The R has more energy, better turning, just overall, just a better missile, right? And it has INS, data link. It's just it's a complicated machine to fight against it. So yeah, we do need something to counter it. But according to some sources, it can even be better than what it is right now. So I have three things to mention in these for these type of thing. The first one, we're going to talk about TWS launches. Second, we're going to talk about the R27T. And the third one about other variants of the R27. So initially, TWS launch. According to a Yugoslavian flight manual of the MiG-29, the pilot could actually fire the R27's via TWS. The pilot would fire the missile in TWS, and it would automatically go from TWS, so target track while scan, right, to STT, single target track. So basically, you would be doing the TWS, and then you would hard lock the target when the missile is from 500 meters to 5 kilometers in range from the target. This was done automatically, but also could be done to the pilot by the pilot if he needs to, right? So it would basically be a semi-Fox 3 missile, making you maintain a soft lock with the TWS. Obviously, in the manual is mentioned how that was automatically done by choosing the most dangerous target, which means that the target that is the closest and the fastest going to you, would be chosen by the aircraft. But the pilot could also choose a target if he wants to, and then he would launch the missile in that target into TWS, and he would guide it using the corrections via data link with the information from the mothership's radar in the TWS mode, and that would go from that to the radiation mode, so basically for single target track, and basically use the stop using the data link information and actually use the seeker head, the semi-active seeker head, to actually, go for the radiation bouncing back from the target, really close to it, and then just destroy the target with minimal changes. Basically, you would be using the same principle as the Phoenix using TWS, but then instead of going for an active mode before impact, or Pitbull, if you will, or Husky, I think, you would basically go for a semi-active mode, back to a semi-active mode, and then you would basically home into the target and destroy it. So very OP, if you ask me. The funny part is that according to these graphics that I'm going to show, the R27ER and the R27ER, you can see the ranges of them, specifically the difference between flying at 10 kilometers, 5 kilometers, and 1 kilometers in range. Specifically the ER, you can already see the difference between the R and the ER, that the ER is basically twice as much range in these conditions, and flying at 1,100 kilometers per hour, so not that fast. It would already be a lot better than the AIM-120. The AIM-120, according to most sources, has a 30 kilometer range in flying at Mach 1 at 3 kilometers of altitude. So pretty low, but if you compare to the ER almost does that. It does like 28 kilometers, flying at 1 kilometer of altitude at 1,100 kilometers per hour. So flying way lower and slower than the MRAN needed to go at 3 kilometers to get to 30 kilometers. So you see that the ER is already very OP. So to be honest, guys, let me be honest with you guys here. I wasn't very keen to actually having the AIM-120 being added without a Fox 3 counter for the Soviets. But if this actual thing is added, if TWS launch and actual terminal guidance can be done with semi-active guidance, as I said, I don't see a point of not adding the AIM-120. It would be still kind of a Fox 3 missile. It would still outrange heavily the AIM-120. And yeah, the Sparrows are not really cutting it, are they? So if this is added, I can agree that the AIM-120 needs to be added without the R77. But if this is not added, I think then we need the R77 and maybe a more modern edition for the AIM-120. Not saying right now, but in the future when these aircraft get a little bit more modern. So very interesting, right? As I said, this is according to a Yugoslavian flight manual. Doesn't mean that it's true or not, but I mean, it probably is, right, if it's from a manual, right? So it's problematic, but it's hard to find information on this. They actually had that before and they removed it for some reason. Maybe it is due to balancing, we don't know. But yeah, let's go for the two other things. The video is already too long. The second thing is that the R27T could be used with a better seeker actually. It already has a level of IRCCM, early IRCCM, and according to Gaijin, it is according to the most trusted sources, they confirm that this type of IRCCM was used in real life for the initial R27's and R73's, right? Basically changes the FOV after the lock, so it has a smaller FOV after the lock, and with that it is having less chances of actually seeing flares, right? But obviously this is not the most modern way of doing IRCCM. Apparently used the R73M seeker after that. We don't know yet, but probably the technology was developed in the very late 80s and it was introduced around the 90s, I would think, or something like that. But according to some sources, as I said, the R73M seeker, which is a similar tech, right? The MK80M seeker, which uses the R73M seeker, has another way of ignoring flares that Gaijin actually introduced it in the dev server when the MiG-29 was added last year. So not only would change the inner FOV of the missile, but it would basically ignore the flares by shutting down the sensor for a period of time. Obviously, it was very fast, you know, but it would basically just shut it down, the IR guidance, and fly using INS, and then it would turn it on. If it sees another flare, it shuts it down and go by INS and then turns it on, you know, and it basically goes from one to the other until it hits the target. So yeah, it would make just popping period flares very difficult to actually evade a missile. It would basically not work, right? So yeah, it's very, very OP. But the thing is that we have ways to actually deal with that. Like, for example, spamming flares and then changing direction is a way that it can be done. It's not that difficult to actually do that. But the pilot would need to know that it's being fired with those type of missiles, right? So yeah, I think the Americans would have a similar tech in the A9M as well, in the later models at least. So it is very much an OP missile if he ever gets that. It's already a very good missile right now. If he gets that, it's going to be even better, right? And the third and last thing is another versions of the R27's. If you don't know, the R27's actually have a passive seeker variant and an active seeker variant. They are called normally the R27EA and the R27EP. They normally use the engine of the E's, right? And they use a different seeker. The active variants actually were probably never tested, and with the R77 being produced instead, I mean, there was basically no reason to actually have that missile, right? But the P apparently, it saw some kind of testing or even service apparently. It's hard to tell and hard to find proper confirmation of this, and it was probably developed to destroy AWACS's, but it can still be used against fighters apparently, as I said, according to some sources. So it is an anti-radiation missile, just like any arm, right? But the objective was to aim in airborne targets or airborne raiders, right? The limitations of these systems are unknown, you know, it's very classified, but they are definitely used less than the R's and the T's. So it can be an option as well to be added against early AIM-120's before the R27 is added as well, right? So to counter a little bit of the AIM-120 if it's needed, right? The objective was to basically not use a proper active seeker, not use infrared, and not use the radiation coming from the mothership aircraft that it's bouncing back from the target and actually going for the seeker head of the missile, and actually just homing on radars that are already from the enemy. So it would see an AWACS, for example, emitting a lot of radiation, and it would home into that other radiation. It is a very interesting technology, and basically I think the main difference between, I mean, it's the same type of thing as a normal R, right? But the thing is that the technology needs to have basically a multiple frequency kind of situation there, that it can change the frequency like for any frequency that anybody uses on radars to actually be able to seek basically any type of radio wave, right? So it is a little bit more advanced, and I wouldn't, I mean, doubt that these missile actually can be used as a normal semi-active missile. So it would be interesting to see that. And even if you ask me, it probably would have the same type of technology as the ER. This is just talking like guesses, right? But maybe, I mean, if the ER has this tech and the R has the tech of shooting from TWS, imagine what a passive version could do. It would basically passively or via data link in TWS be guided until close to the target, and then obviously you would already have the passive seeker head, you know, turned it on. So once it gets enough radiation, it could just forget about the TWS and the data link and go for that radiation, and it would be basically a, you know, Fox 3 missile. The only way that this could be, you know, maybe avoided would be to actually notch it, making the radar kind of invisible because it's looking at the other way, right? Or going cold, basically, or turning off the radar. So yeah, pretty cool. But remember, these missiles also have INS, so if you're just turning off the missile, you need to turn, because the INS will continue to basically fly the missile until it's near you. So yeah, very scary technology, and it would make it the R27's even more OP. But to be honest, as I said, these things, not the T variant. The T variant is more of a, in the future it can be added, but the active, the passive ones, and also the TWS launch on the ER could be a thing if they actually want to add Fox 3 missiles for the others to actually be a little bit better than the Sparrow. You know, it would be a very interesting technology, and it would just make it so that early Sparrow AIM-120's can be added without having to add the R27. But let me know in the comments if you agree with me or not, that this can be an option, what you think about it. I know, as it is a Russian missile video, you always doubt my sources, because when it's a Soviet video, everybody always doubts it, but when I talk good about the US aircraft, nobody ever talks about anything. But anyway, you know how these things are. The sources are going to come from the R27 post on the forum. There he has all the sources and stuff that I used with it. So yeah, you can check it out, okay? I see you guys on the next one, and bye guys, see you.